Welcome back to Telltale. This video is going to be shown outside of my normal schedule because I wasn't really planning on doing it, at least not at this time. But I read a story and loved it enough that I wanted to do a video on it. Now, most of what Telltale does is more classic stories and from all different genres, but mostly older stuff from before I was born. Some things after that, but very little of what we talk about on this channel has been recent publications, like after 2010. We have done Gideon the Ninth. We need to do Harrow the Ninth one of these days. Both of us just keep getting pulled in other directions away from that book. We've got to dig in and finish it, though. We have done stories like Project Hail Mary and the two of the Sarah J. Maas books, but otherwise we're very light on recent works, and frankly the reason for that is not because there isn't anything good being published these days. There's a lot of exciting things being published these days. It's a really great time for literature and for fantasy, horror, and science fiction genres especially. We do, however, have a lot of really old works that we want to cover, a lot of ground that we'd like to cover in our videos, and we've got a long way to go on that. I mean, there's things such as Chaucer and Virgil and John Bunyan and William Shakespeare and the rest of Edgar Allan Poe, and we've never touched on Charles Dickens. There's a lot of Robert Louis Stevenson. There's still a lot of H.G. Wells to go. We haven't done any Jules, so there's a lot of really old stuff that we've never touched on. And we'd like to get to it all. But it does take time, and we both work, so send us your money and we can spend more time. No, I'm just kidding. It would be nice if we could get the money to make this full time and finally get into our publishing. But for now, we have to just push through the best we can the way it is. And so we are focusing mostly on older works. I'm getting to the story. The story that made me want to do this video is actually one, it's already more than 2 years old. It was published in the May-June 2020 issue of Analog. Now, Analog was not the first science fiction magazine that I picked up, but it was the second after the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction. And so both magazines are near and dear to me. I have really loved them. They have been a part of my whole journey through science fiction, starting with the October issue of 1978 of Fantasy and Science Fiction I picked up, and then the first issue of Analog I picked up was January 1979. And so I was there I was a subscriber through the entire anniversary year of 1980. That was their big 50th anniversary. So 2020 was their 90th year. 10 more years and we'll be celebrating 100 years of this magazine, if we can keep it going that long. It's an excellent magazine. In their 90th anniversary year, they reprinted a lot of older works. Like this issue has Were Search by Anne McCaffrey, which was the first of the Dragon Riders of Pern stories ever published. That's a good story. It's in there. And it also has the cover story, Moral Biology by Neal Asher. I have not read anything by Neal Asher before now. So I had to look up what the heck the polity was. Yeah. And so I know that he wrote that most of his fiction fits into this polity universe. I still am not very clear on what the polity really is. It's the political organization of all the planets that humans have colonized, I guess. It doesn't seem to be an empire. So this is a far future where human beings have been augmented by technology. They've had implants that improve their physical and mental abilities, and there are also AIs that are planted into human bodies so that it's no longer a human being anymore. The body is just a vehicle. The brain is the AI guiding it. So there's this mixture of technologies going on in the characters. And they come to this planet, and the planet is heavily guarded by satellites, by a satellite system. Destroys anything that's trying to enter or leave. And their sensors tell them that there is an alien life form down on this planet, and they want to go down and establish contact. Now, the alien life form is from a civilization advanced enough that they have integrated a lot of technology into their biology as well. So the alien life form is in contact with and controlling the satellites and other things on the planet in order to protect itself. So they go down, and of course the shuttle they're on gets shot out from underneath them. Fortunately, they had anticipated this, and they were all in escape pods. The escape pods are able to make it to the surface, and so then they have to walk to find this creature, and they encounter a lot of obstacles in the form of creatures on this planet that just, they're being directed to attack them. And I'm going to stop at that because there's spoilers after that, but it raises some really interesting ideas about the future of civilizations and the moral aspects of biology and how much control we need to exert over our biological natures. You know, here on Earth we have those issues with a lot of our sexuality as well as our feelings of anger, that we have to harness them and keep control of them and try to keep ourselves civilized. H.G. Wells made that the whole point of The Island of Dr. Moreau, that the difference between us and the animals is our laws that keep us in line. If it wasn't for that, we'd be as wild as the wild animals. And that point is being extrapolated into the future. It applied to an alien biology in this story. And it makes for a very interesting situation and leaves you with some very interesting questions to explore after that. Unfortunately, I can't get into it without totally spoiling the story, and I don't want to do that. It is a fairly recent story. Unfortunately, it hasn't been collected in any other form. It's only available so far in this issue of Analog. So write letters to Neal Asher telling him to put together another polity collection of short, if you want. Otherwise, track down. I kind of did a search because my edition, my copy of this was the first copy coming to me in a subscription, and frankly, it got beat up, and I tore the cover up trying to get the mailing label off. Those used to come off a lot easier. Haven't been a subscriber for a long time. There were a lot of years I stopped subscribing to these magazines, and I decided to start them up again when I wanted to find out what was going on with more recent science fiction, and this is one of the first of the more recent stories I have tried, and I loved it. This is as good as anything by Hal Clement, Eric Frank Russell, Poul Anderson. I mean, a whole host of other writers of early astounding stories that I could name that wrote stories along these lines. I'm not going to call moral biology a top tale, mainly because it is just another in a long line of stories like this. There's nothing, in my opinion, especially groundbreaking about this story. But if you love the golden age type of science fiction story, or if you love other hard science fiction authors today, I think Neal Asher and at least moral biology are going to be stories that you will love just as much. It's a story that you'll love just as much, and I suspect that I will find the rest of Neal Asher's work just as interesting. And so I'm excited to get into more of Neal Asher whenever I can find time. It seems to be someone worthwhile adding to your science fiction library. So I'm not going to launch into another try to read everything by Neal Asher, but I'm definitely going to track down some more polity novels and stories and see if they're as good. So come back and see all of our other videos about other authors and other subjects and whatever else we can think to throw on this channel. Like us, subscribe to us, leave comments. Tell me what you think. Did you read Moral Biology? Are you a subscriber to Analog? Did you already read this story 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago? That's how far behind I am. Did you already read it? What did you think of it? And if you have read it, if you've read this and read other works by Neal Asher, is it worth digging into the rest of his work? So come back and see more of our videos. Till then, I hope you enjoy reading.